damage from the horrendous walk to get here. Funny enough, it's cheap. There. I think that is it. It's just that I really like that colour. I love that colour, cadmium orange. It's been one of my favourite colours, that is. That one, lovely colour. What was I going to put on? There's one more I was thinking of. Cadmium yellow. Let's put that on. Then we'll have to get moving. Just a tiny little bit of that because I don't. Dipper. Move that right up there today. Porthallow is over there, and I'm going to try and just paint that scene there with some of these nice clouds. Something like this, so the clouds will be up there, and then this will be Porthallow will be somewhere here. That's the plan. We'll see how we get on. Wish me luck. I think we're going to have to put this water here, like that. Hopefully that will dry a bit quicker with the turps mixed in with it. I'll get painted on top of that pretty quick. So, I think I'm going to have to just see these funny colours. We've got a bit of orange in there as well, I see. I think I made that too big. And the strap's starting to make a racket now. Hello, Basil. Good boy. Try and get a sort of an evening sky. Let's get some of these pink areas in. There's a little pink streak in there. This runs across. finding it really hard to get these dark rocks in now because it'll stay too wet now. This is quite hard to get these colours in on top of this, you see, down there. Introduce a different colour into it. Should be tucked away blue already there because it's not in the sun. Not that looking like that. Just got to find these areas, these shadow areas now. Just try and get this. Again over there now. This area is more of a shadow area, I think, over there. Putting that on. That bit behind there is darkened, doesn't it? A little bit. I quite like it. I won't be too dark, so I'm going to have that like that. What I'll have to do, I think, once that's dried, is in the studio, is make those these more yellow. At the moment, they just put some whites on. the sky. I think that'll do. I've had enough. I think that'll do for this evening. I've had enough now. I'm quite cold, so we'll call it a day. We'll have to continue in the studio as usual. Always the way when it's an evening one, so that's the way it goes. But that's Porthallow and their little beach with an evening sky. So at least we've made a good start, so we can carry on with that in the studio. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Until the next part in the studio. And here we are, we've returned to the studio. That's where we were, and the first thing after looking at it for a while, it's obviously dried now for 2 or 3 weeks. The first thing I decided to do was to lower the rocks down and have more of the sea. So that was the first job, was to paint this out, these rocks, and just have more of an interesting shape. I thought they were too high, and I wanted more of the water to reflect some of that sort of evening sky. So with some opaque paint, this was like a manganese blue with some lemon yellow and titanium white mixed in, and perhaps a bit of cadmium orange there with that one, that little area of colour I'm putting on there. And yeah, this was an opaque paint which was covering this these rocks which I'd painted on location. And as you'll see later in the video, I think it certainly improved the painting. So I just roughly painted it in. And I always like to use this sort of the side of the brush rather than the tip. And I scrub and push the paint around, and then I decided to go back into the sky again, just to blue off that little left hand corner. Just add a bit of blue into there, and that's all I did with the sky. I didn't add any more because I quite liked it as it was. It was quite bright with those evening clouds to the right there. I thought the sky was quite nice enough. I quite like the sky is bright, and that helped to let the headland stand out. I'm working on the rocks here. This was quite a tricky area, really tricky area to work on, and a lot of this is sort of done from imagination. A lot of this I've always got that little photograph on my phone of the scene, and so I usually place that to the side, so if I need to refer to something I've got that there. But generally I had a good idea of what I wanted to do. I wanted to have a dark area to the right there of rocks, and lighter to the left hand side, and a little bit of sky colour coming through on the left hand side there into the rocks, so like a bluey grey. And I definitely wanted that, needed some darks in the foreground to push back the area where Porthallow village was, and that headland needed to go back. So those darks are very important in the foreground rocks. Now with the rigger I'm just putting in some rough details where you've got little cracks and holes in the rocks. I just brush them in loosely. I don't need to follow any strict reference for that. That's all just loosely brushed in. That can be anywhere. Those marks can go anywhere. So that's what in here, like for instance,
just adding some definition to some of the rocks that are poking up into the water, just to make them stand out, so they've got a bit of shadow on one side and a bit lighter on the other. This is a case of just, this is quite good fun. It's difficult, but it's quite good fun to play with these sort of areas, because you can basically paint what you want, and nobody can sort of say to you, "Oh, that's wrong," because they don't know, they weren't there. And even if they were there, it would probably look different at different times of the day because of where the shadows were falling. So you've got a lot of freedom here to play around and just really have a lot of fun. You can see how I'm just using that rigger brush really loosely and just letting the bristles on it do all the work with the paint on. So just sort of push it around, and a few little highlights here and there make a big difference. This area on the right there, this is the part of the coast path we walked along to get to those rocks at Nare Point. That was an awful stretch of coast path, very overgrown, right near the edge of the big drop. So yeah, it's very not the nicest. That's probably the worst bit of coast path I think I've done ever. It's horrendous. But what I wanted to do here, which I wanted this to sort of be really cool, so I painted over all of that with like a bluey grey wash, well sort of not a glaze, but blue grey paint mixed with some of my Stand Oil and Terps Medium. So it wasn't like opaque to cover everything, so areas came through, but I didn't want it to be transparent, and I made it a really cool blue grey. And here I'm just over painting that field there, the grass, with a very cool green, because I wanted all that to be nice and cool, so that area where the village of Porthallow is and the beach would stand out and you could see where the sun was. And this changes this colour as I go along in the painting, but this helped me just balance that area against the warm greens behind it. So it's quite a strange phenomenon in this sense that we've got our warm colours behind the cool colours. Normally in a painting you would often say that the cooler colours were in the furthest part away from you as they'd be receding away. But here, for a bit of fun, I decided I wanted to put these cool colours, so you've got violets, blues, greys, cool greens in front of those warm yellows. Very, very interesting, and that's what I wanted to do. Not necessarily how it was in the it was cooler because it was in the shade. It wasn't probably quite as cool as that, but that's what I wanted to do in the painting. That's the sort of thing you have to make decisions on when you're painting. I'm not copying a photograph or anything like that. We're painting to make a painting, and it can work how you want it to work. And then working back into that area at the back there, and I decided to make some of the colours a bit more earthy. You've got areas of woodland dropping down, so that area there is looks like an old sort of quarry area to me. We had areas of cool colour in there, mingled in with the warm colours of the earth, that you can see that sort of pinky earth colour. This was just a case of just slowing down a bit now and just mixing up the right colours and placing them in the right places where they would work. That's a smallish filbert brush I'm using there, so it's flat with the rounded edges. I don't tend to use very big brushes very often. I like the small brushes to get the marks, all the brush marks. And so just muting those greens a little bit, leaving some of the brighter greens to come through. So because I've greyed some of these greens off, now even though they're warmer than the colour in front of it on the blue bank to the side, these colours are warmer, but because they've been greyed off a bit, they're sitting behind that cool cliffside, and it then allows me to let the buildings in the village to come forward and lead us through the painting and into that little valley that we can't see. So you're thinking, oh, I wonder what's around that corner. So here we are. I'm just working some of these whites into here, tinted with cadmium orange and a lemon yellow or a cadmium yellow. So you just tinting the white and placing it on top. This is the sort of thing that's quite difficult on location when the paint's already got really wet. Very difficult to get these highlights into these areas, so I find it easier the way I paint to do this in the studio when this has had a chance to dry. So this is like a plein air painting you've had 2 sessions of work on it. One outdoors, so you've got all your reference and a good feel for the scene, and had some fun outside and a bit of exercise getting back to the car. And then you've got your other session here in the studio where you can make all these adjustments in my opinion, to make a better painting out of it. In my case, that's the way I work. I find my outdoor plein air work often needs another session in the studio. And some artists are so good they can get away with just the plein air session. But generally, because I go out in the evenings mainly, I haven't got very long to actually complete a painting outdoors. I've only got probably 45 minutes to an hour before I have to start walking back before it's dark along the coast path. So you imagine that coast path was so dangerous, there's no way I could have walked back along there in the dark with all my gear. We had the dog with us as well. So I usually have probably about an hour's painting time outdoors in locations like this, because I like to paint in the evening. I like the evening light, and so it does require another session in the studio. So just lots of fiddling now, just really small corrections, little adjustments. So you just stand back, have a look at the painting, see where it needs to be worked on. Most of this is all done from memory and just imagination. So like I'd stand back. There's my homemade mahl stick. I just put a little boat in there, which was hanging around outside the cove. But there's the mahl stick, so resting my hand on that stick. Sticks are propped up against the easel at the side there. It just helps me with these little areas which need to be a bit more precise. But yeah, you stand back from your painting, have a look, see where it needs some marks of different colours. Some areas need to be greyed off, knocked back a bit, and others need to be brought forward. But you can only really see that when you sort of you stand back and have a proper look at it from a distance. When you're working on top of it like this for any length of time, it's hard to see those things. You get just caught up in the little areas that you're working on. So I find it very important to stand back and have a good look from probably sort of 10 feet, 2-3 metres away. If it's a bigger painting, you need to be back even further than that. So we're just picking out a few highlights here where the sun was catching sort of rocks on that area there leading into the village. And a few more highlights on the houses, different tinted whites. Here we've got I quite like this field here. There's a bit of grass coming down, sort of quite a neat lemon yellow gone into that area. There's just little marks like that make a big difference, I find. If I'd plastered that same yellow everywhere, it wouldn't have had the same impact. This session here in the studio would have been about an hour, maybe just over an hour. So all in all, probably 2 hours of painting time on the whole painting, start to finish. But there's also quite a lot of thought time goes in between the plein air painting and the studio session. So when it comes back from the outdoor trip, it goes on the drying rack, and that gives me time to look at it and have a good think about what I want to do next to it. I've just decided this is already wet, this water, because I'd worked on it earlier on at the beginning of this session. I'm just going over it again with slightly bluer colour mixed with maybe a touch of magenta in there, hardly any magenta, but just dragging the brush lightly across the surface because I wanted it to just be slightly bluer there, and have the lighter area in the water where the lighter area in the sky is. And then we've got some finishing touches going in here. Just took the rocks up slightly there by painting over them with a light colour. And that's what we ended up with. Quite an enjoyable session. Not a very nice walk to that location, but great location when we got there, although it was very windy, swirling wind. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that one, and as always, bye for now and see you next time.